Yes. All right, man. So we are live. As I was just saying to the gents, 2021. These men are trying to up their timekeeping, boy. No one was late today. 9 o'clock. We are going live and direct to everybody. And also, man, I just want to rate and thank these guys for jumping on. As I said, I've rated these guys for a minute now, but I'll let them introduce themselves. This is Everyone's a Pundit, episode 58. And yeah, man, we've got Dot and Budge from the Beautiful Game podcast. But let me let them to introduce themselves first, please. Which you can decide which one of you want to go first.
Go on, Budge.
Yeah, man. First and foremost, I just want to say Happy New Year. Of course, you know, we're all in unprecedented times as we've heard so often. Just thank you for inviting us to come on and join you on the episode, man. It's just a pleasure that we're obviously in the new year now, and as you said, we can collaborate, we can work together, and we can produce content, man. And we got big things coming this year, and I'm sure that's going to be the case around the table here. So it's an absolute pleasure. As you already alluded to, I go by the name of Budge, proudly representing the Beautiful Game podcast. It's been a superb 2020 for us. And, we got bigger and better things coming in 2021, man. So watch this space.
Wicked. Dot, hit them up, man.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything for me to add. I think Budge hit the nail on the head. But Dot and my Twitter handles at LFC Nino. Follow the Beautiful Game podcast, which is at podcast_TBG. And we've still got that Yannick Bolasie interview that's just going crazy. So I advise everyone to listen to that.
Hit that up, man.
Well, that's it, man. Like, for those that don't know, let them know exactly, well, not exactly, a little bit about what you guys have been doing, because you guys have been doing a lot of big things, man. And, obviously Views hasn't got a massive platform, but there is a following that may not know who you guys are. So let them know exactly what the Beautiful Game podcast is about, please.
Yeah, so we're basically three close friends that love football. And over the past year, we've been, working our socks off, even from before that, should I say, 2018, back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously our remit is to create a safe space for professionals in football to come onto our platform. And just to list a few names, even though I'm not a big fan of name dropping, but we've had people like
drop the names, man.
Brendan Rodgers, Ebere Eze, Jermaine Defoe, Kieran Trippier, and so many other footballers. So if you haven't checked out our channel, please check the Beautiful Game podcast on YouTube or Spotify and Apple.
Wicked. And as always, the links to these guys' thing will be in the description, and that will be distributed around on our platforms as well. Please, people, go and follow them, because, as I said, I respect them highly, and they're doing a lot of big things out here. So go and follow them, people. And then, yeah, man, Kojo, introduce yourself. You've been on a couple of times already before, but please introduce yourself as well, my guy.
Always a pleasure, my bro. I am Kojo from the 3inMidfield podcast, as well as Footy Says. But you probably see my face everywhere because I'm becoming a bit of a podcast host. I'm here, there, and everywhere. I'm the same. But I'm always glad to be here. I'm going to do this one time because I've never done this before. I'm here with the co-conspirators, you know what I'm saying? So I'm feeling a bit, Remember, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. They've been on my show before, and like when I used to go to Spotify, I go on YouTube now to watch all their shows, isn't it? But when you go on Spotify and hear "It's a Beautiful Day," I'm like, yeah, it really is. It's time. It's time. I love these guys, and obviously, you're doing wonderful things as well, bro. Joe Gomez, I ain't forgot about you, bro. I've seen that Joe Gomez interview as well, so I'm loving this. But thank you for having me on, and it's always a pleasure to come into your show, man. I love it.
Wicked, man. And as I said, your links will be in the description as well. Fully rate your content, and you're on all of these different podcasts because you know your football. Do you know what I mean? And that's why you get invited on. so yeah, man. Respect to you as well. But let's get straight into it. If you are new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. And yeah, please hit the like button as well because it does help the channel grow. So we're going to get into it. This weekend's Premier League football games. We started off on Friday where Everton lost 1-0 at home to West Ham, and Man United beat Aston Villa 2-1 to go joint on points with Liverpool. Saturday started off with Tottenham and Leeds. Tottenham beat Leeds 3-0 at home. Palace 2-0 at home to Sheffield United. And then Brighton and Wolves shared the points 3-3. Arsenal, not sure if it was a shock to many, but boy, 4-0 away to West Brom. And then we come on to today, which is Sunday. Burnley and Fulham game was postponed. We was talking a little bit behind closed doors regarding the COVID and how it's just this new strand is just attacking everybody. So we wish them lot well. Newcastle lost 1-0 at home to Leicester. Well, sorry, 2-1 at home to Leicester. And Chelsea today lost 3-1 at home to Man City. And you know where I want to start, gents? I want to start with the Chelsea game because, you know, obviously Chelsea was one of my tips for the Premier League, not necessarily because of the manager, but because of the investment they had in, because of what I know Abramovich wants from that football club. He's not spending all of that money for them to be finishing just top four or outside of the top four, you know, but they are struggling a little bit, man. And we're in that game. I thought it was quite crazy because on, 14 minutes, they put the stats up. 66% possession to Chelsea, 34% to Man City. And Man City didn't really get going. And then Kevin De Bruyne had that chance, and then it all changed. So what do you lot think of the setup today from Man City? And let's start with Man City. Budge, what did you think of the setup and him starting with Kevin De Bruyne, it looked like in that forward role and not playing Aguero?
So naturally, when I'm looking at the setup of City, the first thing that I identify is exactly that, the fact that De Bruyne is playing in that false nine role. And of course, you raise some eyebrows and you have certain doubts, of course, because that's not his natural position, right? But I kind of understood where Pep was coming at in terms of that angle because of the fact that, you know, and I've mentioned it on a few occasions so far this season, that City have looked a bit toothless. You know, they look as though they've not really been at their level best, you know, in terms of creating chances, scoring goals and so on and so forth. And with, of course, injuries to Jesus and Aguero, Pep's been trying to try a few different solutions. I know he's played a few different players in that position. I forget the name of the gentleman that came in during the summer, the Spanish guy that he's played up front as well. Ferran Torres, exactly. Thank you for that. So I knew that was literally just an attempt to try and find some sort of solution. And fair in terms of how Chelsea have been in terms of form of late. You know, in my mind, I was thinking, well, you know, if there's ever time to try something different like that, it probably is at this time because of the fact that, you know, Chelsea aren't in the best run of form. And, you know, maybe, you know, as long as City can get De Bruyne on the ball and they can get the runners in behind the Sterlings, the Phil Fodens, then they could get at Chelsea because their defense has looked a bit leaky, albeit a fairly strong run of games like earlier on in the season. In you know, recent weeks, they've not looked as solid. But I think it was brilliant from City. You know, they stepped it up a notch. It was to see that they've sort of released the handbrake a little bit, and you know, very fast flowing football, which was quite impressive. I was very impressed with Phil Foden. I know there's been a lot of talk about the fact that he should be starting games more regularly in recent weeks. And you know, an unsung hero. I know Dot may beg to differ on this one. But for me, Ilkay Gundogan, where he may not necessarily be as athletic as he once was and have the legs in midfield, he is such an intelligent player. And I think games like today, his football IQ really come to the fore. And I think he was rightfully named the man of the match, because I think he was absolutely unplayable in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, he looked good today, man, and he kept it moving. And I agree with you. He's a very intelligent footballer. And I just thought it was just crazy the way the game started, and then this City just took control. And I think it was a bit of a statement that they put down today. Even though you know how football is, especially the Premier League, the team that's on a bad run, I kind of expected them to beat City today, if I'm honest with you, just because of the way it could just turn. But you know what? They're lost 4 in the last 6 games. Dot, what's your thoughts on Chelsea going forward and Frank Lampard? Do you think that he can turn it around?
Probably. But I think the bigger question is, I don't think he's the right man to take Chelsea forward.
Yeah.
And I think if you go back to the summer, I think Frank Lampard tried to take a lot of shortcuts. You don't sign attacking players when attack wasn't the problem last season. The problem was defense. And although Thiago Silva has been a very good signing, I just think the way he addressed his defensive problems wasn't right. For me, they should have brought in a new centre midfielder or a defensive midfielder. And I think Declan Rice was the perfect fit for that team. N'Golo Kante doesn't look like the player that he once was. He looks like his legs are gone and he can't cover ground the way he used to. Mendy had an impressive start, but I'm not convinced on him as a goalkeeper. I don't think he starts for any other of the top 6 clubs. So for me, that's not good enough to take Chelsea to title contenders. And then you look at the offensive signings. Havertz. Chelsea really need Havertz? I'm not sure. How much money? 80 million for a player that can't get into your best 11 at the moment. Timo Werner looks a shell of himself. Ziyech, I've always questioned why was he at Ajax for so long. This was a guy that was putting up 20 goals and assists every season in Ajax, but when Ajax get raided, it's De Jong that's going, it's De Ligt that's going. So surely there was a potential red flag for a lot of big clubs to go in for him, because this is someone that I feel should have moved 2 or 3 years ago. So I just think you spend all that money on all these fancy new cars and you're not getting the best out of them. And for me, it kind of reminds me of the end of Brendan Rodgers' tenure at Liverpool when he bought Firmino for big money and you couldn't really see Firmino fit into this team. And it took for Jurgen Klopp to come in and play Firmino in that false 9 position. And I'm seeing the exact same thing with Kai Havertz. I think if a new manager does come in, they're going to say, you know what, Havertz, you're going to play centrally as the false 9. Timo Werner, you're going to play from the left, or maybe even from the bench. And Pulisic is going to be on the left and Ziyech is going to be on the right. And you now build a new Chelsea team from that base. But I think going back to Chelsea's performance, I think it was poor. Very, very shocking. I mean, I said on another podcast, I can't remember what platform it was, probably even my own platform, that a defender like Kurt Zouma, as good as he's been this season, you can only achieve so much. He's not going to take you to a Premier League title. I think Ben Chilwell is the only signing that I can say, you know what, he's worth the money, although he had a torrid time today. So I think when you look at the recruitment from a Chelsea perspective, A, it's not good enough. And B, Frank Lampard isn't a top manager. So I don't expect them to finish in the top 4 unless they make a change and bring in a new manager.
I hear that, man. It's interesting, though, because we're going to get on to Man United later on, that you talk about the manager and the players and everything. But, Kojo, with regards to Werner, what's your assessment on him? Obviously, today was a difficult game for him. I can't really get onto him too much for today because as a whole, Chelsea's performance was poor and City were good. But, you know, Dot made a point there of kind of suggesting potentially that even if a new manager comes in, Werner may not even make that starting 11. What do you think about him and his potential in that Chelsea team?
I think what the issue is with Werner is Lampard is not using him in the position where he should be. Now, the thing is, anyone that watches Bundesliga knows that the most defenses, 9 out of 10, they have high lines. And most of the time when he had the counter-attack, he broke in from the left, which brought this sort of misconception that he was a winger. He's always a striker, always able to cut in from the left from the counter-attack, get past the man and then score goals with his speed. Or he played in the 2 with Poulsen. So you have someone now who you've signed and you're playing him as a left winger so that you can accommodate maybe Giroud or you can accommodate Tammy Abraham. When you're playing in the Premier League where defenses will not always be the same, there will be high lines, there will be lower blocks. You need to find a way to position him in the team. Now, I will not make excuses for Werner when it comes to the chances he's missed. He has missed some absolute sitters. That's on him. You cannot look at Lampard and say that's your fault, because quite frankly, I forgot what team they played against at Stamford Bridge when he was practically on the line and he somehow scoops onto the bar. That there's no excuse for. But when you know you've got someone that can play as a poacher, someone that has because he has good movement and he's quick, so he's not easy to track. I feel like you have to put him in the middle. You have to play your players where they need to be. Mount had that similar problem. I think it was beginning of this season when he was playing on the left side. Mount is not a left winger. Mount should be playing in the middle. Same as now Havertz. Havertz is not a right winger, nor is Havertz a deeper player. Havertz is a number 10. And that baffles me with him as well, because Lampard could sort of use him in the way that Lampard was used at Chelsea. Yes, Lampard was a midfielder, but you've got someone like Leverkusen who was scoring goals and creating. So I think with someone like Timo Werner, you need to put him in as a striker and you need to make him that base. You spend a lot of money on the guy. You beat Liverpool to the player. Whether Liverpool really wanted him that deeply or not, I don't know. I can't speak on that. But you paid the release fee for a striker that scores goals. So your job is to put him in a position to score goals. And I don't think Lampard's doing that. So it's a bit of both. Werner could have a lot more goals if he actually finished the chances that he had. But at the same time, I've got to look at the manager and say you're playing him in a wing position where he shouldn't be. He's a striker, he's a number 9, and he's going to get you goals if you put him in the right sort of system and tactics. So he's not the only one that's suffering. Kojo,
don't you think it's like a similar situation with Aubameyang at Arsenal, where I think the manager feels your game doesn't suit that lone striker, and for me, Werner needs to be with a partner. So Frank Lampard doesn't have confidence and faith in him to be down the middle, so he puts him down on the left so he can link up with a target man like a Tammy Abraham or Giroud. But going back to Chelsea's business, like Chelsea have never been able to sign strikers with pace and do successful. Like Morata failed, Fernando Torres failed, Schenko, big name came. The only strikers that have done well at Chelsea are the target men, the Didier Drogba's, the Diego Costa, the Olivier Giroud's. Like Chelsea traditionally don't get the best out of strikers that run in behind.
That's facts. And I don't know whether he's afraid to change his tactics. I mean, for example, he's playing 4-3-3 all the time. A defensive midfielder, something that Kante should not be playing, for an example. Kante's not a defensive midfielder. He never has been, in my opinion. He's a central midfielder that chases the ball. But then I guess his problem is he doesn't know who's going to drop in that midfield. Like, I don't blame Mason Mount. I like Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount's a good footballer, but I feel like he's trying to almost accommodate him. And that's not a problem, but find another way to make sure that everyone else can thrive in that system. So maybe it's a thing where he has to change tactics, because right now you're losing 4 out of 6 games. Your guy is not scoring goals. Defensively, you're struggling once again. You guys said it about Kurt Zuma. Trust me, if I start Zuma, we're going to be here until 12. It's just long. I just feel like Lampard doesn't know what to do with the talent that he has at his disposal. And that's going to cost him at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, surely you would work this out pre-season, because Chelsea, this is one of the things I admired about Chelsea, is they did their business early. It's not like they had to work this all out. He's had a lot of time to try and work this out. And you talk about the strikers that do well at Chelsea, and you mentioned Giroud. And Giroud, for me, every time he seems to come in, he scores goals. He's effective. So why is it that Lampard doesn't say to himself, okay, let me try and find a way of playing, get Giroud in, and change the tactics to play that way? But trying to, I don't know, it seems that he doesn't have a clue of what he's doing, and ultimately it's going to cost him his job. Like, for the floor, do you think he's going to last the season?
That is a very, very difficult question to answer, particularly because obviously we saw today Lampard is statistically, officially now, the worst manager that Chelsea have had, I think, in recent years, in terms of the points per game, the average.
Okay.
I saw some sort of infographic a few hours ago. That was basically showing all of the managers that Chelsea have had, and the fact that he's right at the bottom of that list doesn't bode well for him, particularly when you consider the amount of investment that he's been given, and the fact that when you weigh up all of the different factors, you know, there is very little you can say in his defense, because you know they opened up the purse and spent the money. You know, he's got the bright and burgeoning young talent. He's got the experienced heads and people that have been at the club long enough or have been in the game long enough at this level to perform. So in terms of excuses, he has very little excuses, and I think ultimately that is going to be you know, the reason why he ends up losing his job. I think it's also difficult because, you know, we're talking about him picking his best 11 and trying to find out what system works best. I think because of the outlay on certain players and the price tag on certain players' heads, he is also under a certain amount of pressure to play those players and try and shoehorn them in the team. You know, you've got a Havertz that's the biggest question mark of the team so far, right? How do you fit him in? He's got such a huge price tag; he has to play. You know, with Werner and the aforementioned points about the fact that, you know, he's not working in the system that Lampard's trying to play at the moment. But at the same time, you've got Pulisic, who at the back end of last season was probably Chelsea's best player. You've got to get him in. You've shelled out what 36 odd million for Ziyech. You've got to play him. So it's so difficult. He's got such a difficult job. I will say though, you know, whenever managers go through difficult times, I always look to how they respond to media and how they address certain issues as at least like a first step. And he seemed quite defiant in his interview after that game against City in terms of how realistic he is about you know, where he sees a team at the moment. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't trying to hide or wasn't trying to point and apportion blames at any particular person. He was just very open and honest and was like, look, you know, this is where we're at the moment. Things obviously need to change. He's very confident that they can find solutions internally, and so he should, because they do have the assets within the team. It's just trying to find the right puzzle pieces and put them together in terms of finding the best way out of the rut that they find themselves in at the moment.
Yeah, man. We'll move on from Chelsea, but I think it's clear to say that they're definitely in a rut, and I personally don't think that Lampard's going to be able to. I think they will probably still make top 6. I don't think that's out of the question at all, or in doubt, I should say. But top 4, as Dot said, I think they will struggle to make top 4, and ultimately that will cost him his job. So yeah, man. Frank, good luck to you. I'm not happy. I mean, I'm not upset about it at all. But let's move on to United, because we've got, you know, the 1999 top that is there, innit, Kojo? Let's move on and let's give us something to talk about and smile about. Man United beat Aston Villa 2-1 at home. We ain't been great at Old Trafford this season. And I did a little 2-minute sort of take on where I think Man United are at the moment. And personally speaking, we're in a great position. We're joint level points with Liverpool, you know, same games played. But I still, you know, we're not playing well, in my opinion. You know, we're still in games, not moving the ball quick enough. We're slow, and you know, we've got 7 points from the last 3 games, but that could easily have been 3 points or even 2 points. So I think that we will have to play better in the second half of the season. But there's a lot of positives, in my opinion, because we've got players like Martial that's now starting to look like he's coming back into form. Pogba's coming back into form. We've got Donny van der Beek that ain't even getting a look in. If he can have a big season, you know what I mean? We've got Bailly now. He's played 4 games in a row for the first time since 2017. We have, you know, things that can help us. And it was a question that I was thinking in my head about Chelsea, because Chelsea have good players as well. There's no mistake about it. So could Chelsea turn it around because of the players? Because I'll ask you a question now, Kojo. Is it Ollie because of where we are, or is it the players, or is it a mixture of both?
You know what, bro? The thing is, yeah, everything you said about us being next to Liverpool now, level on points, you know, the potential of if they drop points against Southampton, could we go top in the Burnley game and all that? Listen, as much as I should be happy, yeah, in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking about that Leipzig L. I can't forgive that. That's still in the back of my mind. Like, it angers me. I'm like, oh yeah, we're second, and then when it comes to Europe, we're back on Thursdays again. I'm triggered. I'm still triggered. But you know what? Okay,
You gotta let it go now, Kojo, though, man. You gotta let it go.
I know he's all right. Domestically, he's doing well. That's facts. Domestically, he's doing well. In terms of competitions, you got 3 competitions. We ain't started FA Cup yet, but you're in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, and you're second in the Premier League on goal difference. It's good. It's good. So you can give him a bit of credit. I'll say this: I feel like his lineups make a lot more sense than they did beforehand. I feel like his tactical setup make a bit more sense, even though we're still kind of in and out of games within games, but they do make a lot more sense. You can see a reason to his lineups and the reason why he's playing a certain way. The substitutions are getting better, thank God. But there's still a part of me that says Man United fans need to chill, because saying title race, I mean, I'll back it because of banter, but listen. It's January, yeah? Take your time. Tottenham were top just like 5 weeks ago, and their fans were saying we're winning the league. Now they're saying, we can't do it, but, you know, top 4 will be nice. It'll be good, you know. Nah, you need to chill. You need to take your time, build, grow. We're doing well. Players are playing well. Maguire, as much as you know, I despise the guy. He's performed a lot more better in recent weeks. Bailly can finally run for more than 2 games. So it's good. But whether it's the players or both, I'll say this: it's the players, it's the manager, and it's a bit of VAR as well. If I'm going to be completely honest, man, we're getting a bit of a nice little throwing the decisions back there, you know. And I'm loving it because I know other fans are not having it right now, and it's beautiful to hear. But we need to improve. The thing about it is this: in these games we've won, we have been troubled, and going to Anfield is one hell of a mission. And we can go back to the days where you can talk about their team good now. Yeah, there's been times where they had players like David Ngo, and they still finished us off at Anfield. He scored against us at Anfield and tucked us away. So going to Anfield would never be easy. So you need to go there prepared. But right now they're a juggernaut of a team. Stop smiling like that. Stop it.
No, I'm smiling like one of the comments, you know.
Oh, okay. I thought
Spurs November League winners.
Boy, we're gonna get on to that, because I want to get on to that. Bro.
Can I just say, because Sems, you're obviously Koja, you're obviously talking about, you know, why can't Frank Lampard do what Ollie's done? And me as a neutral, I'm looking at both teams and I see similarities in terms of they're both teams that play in moments. So Manchester United can be having a poor performance and then bang, Bruno, goal, bang, Rashford, game, gone away from you. And I think that's where we need to give Ollie credit. Although the style of play is not laid down where you're dominating games for 85 minutes and you're controlling games and you never look like losing in games, we need to give him credit because he's very good at getting the best out of attacking players. And when you see Rashford's form under him, Martial looks like he's hitting a purple patch of form this season. Bruno Fernandes, who's, you know, putting up the most numbers from attacking midfield in the world. Cavani that comes in and impacts games every single time. You got to give the manager credit because he's creating a system for them to flourish, interchange, and just destroy teams. And that's what Man United do. They're playing moments, but that's not going to win you the league. And I think that's why so many pundits are saying, you know what, it's still going to be between Liverpool and Manchester City because those teams control games over 90 minutes. Whereas Man United, it's more bang, brilliant, goal. But when you play against the big teams, you need a bit more than that. And I think that's where they're going to get found out in those big away games.
Yeah. So you make great points there, because this is exactly what I've said. And I said, when I did my little take, I said that I feel that we've become a very dangerous team at the moment, in the sense that when we will not play well in the game and we will just have that 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, boom, 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 and then we can score out of nothing. We can just be doing nothing, and then few passes, and we've got to go. Whether it be a penalty that we will get, or like I remember we played Leicester and it was 1-1, and nothing wasn't really happening. And then just out of nowhere, Bailey has the ball, couple passes, Cavani drops deep, he plays Bruno through, goal, and it's just raw. You know what I mean? But then this is the other side, because as a Man United fan, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, like when we're, joint top, and then not giving Ollie his credit, as people will say, you need to give the manager the credit, because exactly what you were saying, Dot, is this going to win us the league playing like this? Because we need to do better. We need to control games. We can't just be having these purple patches. And this is where I still have my reservations on Ollie. I still believe to get us to the next level, we need an elite coach, and he's not that level. But you will get a lot of Man United fans who will say that I'm being harsh and I'm being hypocritical.
You know what? You have to be prepared for this. If we go to Anfield and get a result, that whole hype is going to overdrive. I hope you know that. Thing is, right now, Liverpool are the level. They set the level. They are the bar. And if you're gonna say you're in a title challenge, you need to go to Anfield and convince at the end of the day. Simple as that. Same way when Liverpool were, doing so well, even though they were popping everyone was saying, but they have to beat City because City were the bar because they were champions. So Liverpool are champions. So if you're gonna go to Liverpool and get a result, I would even mind a point. I'll be quite comfortable with that. But if we come away with 3 points, then you're gonna hear title challenges, and it's gonna be hard for me to not argue that, because you're also there next to them and you've beaten them, So Dot is right, 100%. Dot is right. You got to give him credit for what he's doing with the attackers. Obviously, we need to defend better, but Anfield is the bar, man. And if we go there and get a result, then I can sit here and say, all right, cool, you're ready to do bits. But we're still in the Europa League, man. And quite frankly, I didn't sign up for that. So I'm going to be using my Thursdays to watch extenders instead of watching the Europa League. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm gonna say this now, and it's gonna sound like a bit bossy about me, but I think we're gonna get a result against Liverpool. I'm gonna be real, because those are the games that we will do well in. I'm telling you, those are the games. It's your Newcastle games, your Palaces, those type of games where I'm worrying about Man United. But against Liverpool, you know what I mean? Liverpool are gonna come on to us, and I feel that we can get a result, man. I know you're going to be confident, though, innit, Dot? I know you're confident.
You know what, Thames? I disagree with you in terms of the being worried about games like Newcastle. I think Bruno Fernandes has changed all of that, because he just puts these teams to bed, like all these Newcastles, the Sheffield Uniteds, the Crystal Palaces. You may have a poor performance, but you know that your magic is going to show once or twice a game, and that usually wins you the game. For example, Southampton, you gave them a 2-goal lead, but you still win that game 3-2.
But this is what I'm saying. Can we do that sustainably over,
I think against the smaller teams, you probably can. You probably come unstuck a few times, but it goes back to the RB Leipzig game. When you're playing quality, you can't afford to start like that, because quality will put you to the start and you won't be able to get back in. If you have a poor start against a Tottenham, or as we saw, it's a 6-1 performance, or a Liverpool, that's where the game just goes away from you before you can react. So I think it's more, how are Man United going to do against those big teams away from home?
Yeah, well, away from home, we've been good, innit? Away from home,
fantastic.
Budge, obviously we're going to get onto Arsenal in a little bit. Don't worry yourself. We're going to get onto you, man. But Villa are a very exciting team to watch. What's your take on Villa when you watch them play, and did you see the game against Man United? What did you think of their account of themselves?
So you know what, I want to take it back a little bit, because when we were talking in summer about which teams recruited well, people naturally would speak about Chelsea, Spurs. So they would speak about Spurs and how smartly they recruited, in terms of the fact that they didn't spend much, but they addressed certain areas in their team that they had deficiencies in. But undoubtedly for me, one of the teams that were in that conversation in terms of how well they invested was definitely Aston Villa. Off the back of how their season ended last year, they really took the summer to address key issues in terms of the spine of that team. And, you know, they've been unsung ever since in terms of addressing those things, strengthening the spine, and just how well those new signings have settled in. Ollie Watkins, I know, you know, he's come under scrutiny a little bit in terms of his lack of goals from open play. But you just need to watch Aston Villa and watch the runs that he makes, how unselfishly he plays for the team. You know, even when they went down to 10 men, you would have never, never said, like, looking at that game, that was a team that was a man down, because the way that they pressed, the way that they were going after the goals, the way that they were running into the channels and stuff like that, it was really, really impressive to watch. And I think, you know, they've really come along leaps and bounds this season in terms of the performances that they've put in. And to be honest, like, every single game they play, they're looking like they're gonna create a few chances. They're looking like they're gonna score. And the game against United, it was no different. They held a good account of themselves. Of course, in the end, United came away with all 3 points, albeit to a very dubious call. Do you know what I mean? And I think Villa are right to feel aggrieved by the decision. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because especially, you know, where they often find them sort of mid towards the end of the season. Those points, they mean a lot. They really, really do, man, for a team like Villa. So, but I think there's nothing more that we can ask of them. I think Dean Smith will be absolutely proud of his team and how they set up themselves about whenever they step out on the pitch. And I think, you know, also you've got to give him his flowers too, in terms of how he's setting up the team, in terms of, you know, how exciting they're looking on the break. Jack Grealish, I think if there were ever any doubts about how much of an influential player he was, or he is rather, I think all of those questions can be put to bed. That guy, just week in, week out, creating chances every single week. And to do it so consistently, to carry the burden of responsibility, to be the chief creator in the team, and to play even some, I would even argue, maybe not necessarily out of position, but I don't think the left side of the attack is really his natural position. I think he's a man that can play in multiple positions, but to be able to play in those different positions to the level that he's playing in, I think it is testament to the quality of the player. And I think he absolutely can play at a higher level. Of course, there will be the few detractors that will say he's shown no ambition in signing a 5-year deal in the summer.
That's just to secure the money for Aston Villa, though, surely.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think so. And at the end of the day, you know, these players weigh and they see what happens. And of course, you've got to weigh up so many different things. You know, there weren't any official bids that came in for him during the summer, so he's probably looking at it like, you know what, this is my boyhood club. At least if I am going to go for big money, you know, like you said, Temps, there, like, you know, let's make sure that it's right for all parties involved. So, but yeah, no, hats off to him. I think he's a top player, and I do want to see him at a top club, Arsenal. Yeah, let's see what the future holds.
Yeah, Jack Grealish, can I just say, for me, I haven't thought about it, but for me, he's like top 5 attackers in the Premier League. That's how good I think he is. And I think people say, he's destined to go to a bigger Premier League club, but I think he's that good that he can play for Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG, and be one of their best players. I think he's that good. And I think with Aston Villa, I think we have to give them credit, because what Dean Smith has done from last season, where they just escaped relegation to being this exciting, attacking, like powerful team. Like, we need to give Dean Smith his accolades. We need to give the recruitment team at Aston Villa his accolades. I think Martinez from Arsenal has been the signing of the season so far. I think he's been a rocking goal. And the thing about Grealish, which, you know, makes me so big on him, is that, like, he always makes the right decisions. Like, he never wastes the ball. He's always thinking or trying to manipulate space. And if he can't play that killer ball, he plays it simple, and that's what a top player does. And I think where Chelsea went wrong in the summer is that people underestimate how powerful you can be if you signed the best players outside the top 6. And I'll give you an example. If you go back to Liverpool's recruitment over the years, Andrew Robertson was relegated at Hull. He's now the best left back in the Premier League. Virgil van Dijk was at Southampton. He's now the best centre back in the Premier League. Sadio Mane was at Southampton. He's now the best left winger in the Premier League. So the point is that to build a title winning team, buy the best outside of the top 6, and they'll propel you to that title winning level.
I agree with that to a certain degree, though, because I don't think we can ignore the fact that you mentioned those 3 players under a world-class manager in Jurgen Klopp. So I don't think every manager is able to do that and bring the best out of those players. But I do agree.
I think Alex Ferguson done it though for years.
Yeah. No, I was just about to say that Fergie did it as well. So I do, but Fergie again, world-class manager. So I do think you do need that top manager to get the best out of these type of players and create a system for them to flourish, as we've been talking about with your Havertz and your Werners in your Chelsea. But I totally agree with that point that you made, Dot, that you don't need to just buy the top dogs. And I think this is a lot of what Man United fans have been saying to me, or someone that I speak to, in terms of where we go next, in terms of the signings that we make. Do we need to then go and spend your £100 million on players, or do we then pick the right type of players for us? Do you know what I mean? James, though.
Some of United's best players, you go back to Village. Where did Village come from? Evra. Where did Evra come from? Carrick came from Tottenham when Tottenham went levels. You know, Rooney was from Everton as a young kid. Rio from Leeds. Like it's just about smartly investing. You know, football's going into the time where, because you're a powerful club, you need to spend big and prove that you are levels. But Liverpool didn't need to do that. Liverpool have always had money, but they brought big money in for Coutinho, and look at the way they spent smartly. But now they're from Newcastle. It's a gem of a signing. You know what I mean? So you just got to invest wisely. So I don't know where United fans are getting this big money thing from, but we need to think smarter if we're going to compete better.
Just a quick question then to you guys before we move on. Is obviously there was the big saga regarding Sancho, and what do you think that Man United dodged the bullet there with Sancho, or do you think that it was just the money wasn't right? Not necessarily to say that Sancho's having a bad time, he ain't a good player, but do you think that Man United was right not to pay the type of money that Dortmund was asking for?
If you don't think he's worth the value, you don't pay it. Simple as that. So yeah, if they didn't think it was worth it, there's no need paying it. I'm a fan of Sancho. I think he's a great player. I didn't agree with the fee either, to be honest, but you know, if you want a player that value and you think he's worth that value, you will pay what you think he's worth. And if it aligns with what Dortmund wanted, then we would have got him, but we didn't. And that's as simple as it gets. Torrid time or not, we all know he's a good footballer. And he's got time to improve. He's still a young boy. So I wouldn't say we dodged the bullet, because anyone knows that our right side is still a problem.
Words there, sorry.
No, that's fine word. I think that's the fine word, because a lot of people are saying, oh, United were about to pay 120 for this guy and all that, and they got lucky not paying that. But really and truly, we still have an issue on the right side, despite how good we've been. So regardless, I still think that, you know, we haven't dodged the bullet per se, but if we're offered him maybe for about, I wouldn't go any higher than 60, then I'd be happy with that. I know. I'm saying to a lot of people, they're like, but that's the highest I'd go personally. I wouldn't go any higher than that. So, you know, that's just me. But 120, I'm not paying that. Well, it's not my money, but I would encourage United to pay that.
I think if I'm not mistaken, Man United win for Sancho. Like, the interest is still very, very strong. They're going to go back in on the summer. Whether they can find their agreement remains to be seen. But I think instead of targeting Sancho, it should be all out for Jack Grealish. Like, that's how good I think the player is. I think if you spend 80 to 90 mil on Jack Grealish, he's one of those players that he's just destined to play at the top level. And I think he's the kind of player that Man United, can you just imagine him and Fernandes just interchanging and just, it's going to be nasty if he goes to Man United.
Well, that's what I tweeted the other day, and I said, you use that Pogba P and you just go and get Jack Grealish. And that was one of the reasons why I mentioned it, because we're talking about Jack Grealish, and then they was looking at Sancho before. But I think Jack Grealish is the one, man. He's prem ready. He's lighting it up every week, and I agree with you, man. But I don't back our board to go and do what they need to do anyway. So, yeah.
So, Sam, can I ask you a question? So let's
Yeah.
say, for example, United do go and get Grealish. In terms of formation and how you would deploy and set up the team, how do you think that works? Like, what system works best to fit him in? Like, where do you play him?
I don't know, man. I personally like him operating off the left, even though you said obviously before it's not a natural position for him, but I think he does a lot of damage there and having like a free role, and he's so creative. So I would like to see him operate in that type of a role, whether we continue to play a 4-2-3-1 and had him operating from the left, that could work, or in a 4-3-3. I think that could work as well. So yeah, I probably would look, but again, depending on, obviously, we're going to have Bruno Fernandes that's still going to be there, and then how do we work that all in? But I definitely think with the right setup and the right manager to get the best out of everybody, we can definitely have them two playing in the same team, man. Definitely. Anyway, Man United are level on points with Liverpool. It's a good start to the year anyway. Regardless of what we all say, it's a good start. Where we were after that 6-1 by Spurs, and I'm thinking Ollie's out by November. It's good to be here and that we can have this discussion anyway. And this moving on to Tottenham now. Obviously, they beat Leeds 3-0 at home. And you know, I don't even want to start with Tottenham. I want to ask some questions about Leeds. Dot, if you can give me your take on Leeds and Bielsa, because you know, one of my mates, Pat, that's usually on Everyone's a Pundit. He's always cussing, saying how Bielsa always gets so much praise, even when they get beat up. What's your thoughts on Leeds? Because me personally, I love watching Leeds. They're an entertaining team and everything. But do we need to start having questions about Bielsa and his style for the Premier League?
I don't think we need to have questions. If you're saying Leeds are one of the best teams in the Premier League, then you can say, okay, we need to have questions. But I don't think anyone thinks that they're one of the best teams in the Premier League. They're one of the most exciting teams. Like, when they go out to play, they're going to commit 6 man in the box and it's fun to watch. But with me, I think the issue that I've seen, I'm not a manager, I'm not a coach. Bielsa's top manager, one of the best managers in the world. But I think sometimes you just may have to adapt your tactic. From when me, as someone that doesn't know much about football and I'm just a fan sitting from my bed watching, I can tell you how they're going to lose, and they lose like that. Yeah. It's funny because I was speaking to my brother before the game and I was like, what's going to happen? Leeds are going to dominate the game. They're going to have a lot of half opportunities. They're going to fluff their lines. They're going to miss all their chances. And Harry Kane and Son are going to put Leeds to bed. And it's just going to be moments again, going back to the moments of Man United, Chelsea, Tottenham, and other moments team. And they just won the game so comfortable. And you're just thinking, how is this game 3-0 when Leeds are in control of the game, dominating the ball, but they're 3-0 down? It doesn't make sense. And I think that's where I think Bielsa needs to, his team needs to be a bit more stubborn defensively. I'm not saying that I want you to, be in the man-to-man marking or you shouldn't be expressive, but I just think defensively, some of the goals they concede is just far too easy. I think one of the goals against Tottenham was from a throw-in and bang, they're just in behind and it's a goal. But what I would say is that they play the same from the first minute to the 90th minute, and I think you have to applaud that because I don't think we've seen this kind of style in the Premier League before, personally. They outrun every single team, and they've outrun Liverpool, they've outrun Man City, two teams that over the past... I don't think they've got a good team, personally. I think it's outstanding, but are they a good team? Yes, but I don't think they've got very good players, and I think that's where they have their limitations.
I hear that. Kojo, would you agree with Dot in terms of the fact that they haven't got the best of players, so they're probably around about where they should be in the Premier League right now?
Yeah, I mean, okay, allegiance is aside because I hate Leeds with my guts, but at the end of the day, no, Dot is right. The way they play their football, we've actually never seen that before. The way they're so aggressive in the press, the way they like to move the ball around, some of the triangles that they form, and the fact that Bamford's someone that these fans in themselves are so split on, the fact that he's still getting goals at this level, despite struggling at a younger age, the guy is, they're doing good things. But I can't. I have a problem with teams that concede so much. I hate bad defending. Like it just really gets onto me. And they concede some of the serious goals. Like just talking about conceding a goal from a throw-in, 1-2, bang, done, game over. It's like you can't be conceding goals like that, especially at this level, no matter who you are. So for me, I think they are where they are, and they will continue to be where they are. What needs to happen next is the next window. I don't know how much money they have. Sorry, I don't know what their finances are like. They will stay in the Premier League. Bielsa being backed, and then because you never know, it could be higher level quality player means better application, which means better performances, which takes you to a higher level, or it could be the same old. I think everyone's just entertained by them because when you watch a Leeds game, you're getting goals, and you're disappointed if it's a 1-0. So everyone's excited by that. But the cynic in me, maybe the old man in me, because now that I've turned 28, everyone calls me old man. Maybe it's the one that wants to watch that sort of that tactical back and forth. Mourinho 1-0, that was great to watch. I like that kind of stuff because I hate just watching bad defending, But they are entertainers and they're doing very well in the league, to be fair to them. And I got to give praise for Bielsa because he stuck to his guns. No matter ways he's managed, no matter what level, you will adapt to his style and you will succeed at his style. And that's what he's making these players do. So, they've come from the Championship, a lot of them, and they've leveled up and they're playing well. So I can only give him the credit for that. But yeah, exactly. If they recruit properly, you never know what damage they can prove next season.
Very, very, very valid point, because the brand of football they play, you can just see if they had a better squad, a better standard of player, that they would be consistently performing right at the top end of the Premier League. Yeah. What I would say though is I would urge Marcelo Bielsa to consider the case study of Daniel Farke and Norwich City last year. They stayed true to their principles and on certain occasions blew teams away, right? We were so impressed with the Emi Buendias, the Todd Cantwells, the Timu Pukis, and the brand of football that they played, right? But ultimately, it became a noose for their own necks come the end of the season, right? They continued to play their style, their brand of football, and they were non-negotiable with it. But ultimately, it cost them. And I just think Bielsa, whilst we absolutely love games like West Brom last week when they blow them away 5-0, and it's like, this is the best football we're seeing in the Premier League, I think he can be a bit more pragmatic and like Dot said, just be a bit more resolute in certain games. In against the team in and around you, bop them about, play that football. But when you're going, coming up against like the teams at the top end of the league, I think you do need to be a bit more tough, a bit more resolute in the way that you're defending. And just try and nick something from those games, and instead of trying to go blow for blow with heavyweights, basically. Do you know what I mean? That would be my take on it, I think.
Yeah, man. The thing is, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments as well. But I think there's no denying the fact that Bielsa's a top coach, because you got the comment there saying that Leeds don't have the quality to play Bielsa's football, but they are playing Bielsa's football, and they play it to a good standard as well. Do you know what I'm saying? Even with the quality of players that they have. So it's undeniable that he's a great coach. I just question the fact that you just a bit naive going into all of these games thinking that you can play the same way. You come to Man United and that was end to end, that was enjoyable, but you got beat 6-2. You got beat 3-0 by Spurs. You know what I mean? You're losing like this when if you
at the end of the day, but Sems, they're meant to lose these games. A newly promoted team are meant to lose these games. So whether you lose 5-1 or you park the bus and lose 2-0, I'll prefer the former. My team having a go against a big club, trying to actually do something, whereas these silly managers that come and put 6 at the back and they still lose. I prefer the former.
The thing is, though, with a slightly different tweaked approach, then Leeds could actually get a result out of those games, though. Last season we saw Norwich beat City. Do you know what I mean? Like it can happen. If you just tweak it a little bit. That's all I'm saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying
I agree with you, but I'm trying to play devil's advocate back to you. You know what I'm trying to say? No, but like if you go back to the point, like for example, Man United, you do not go a goal down in 1 minute. You see what I'm trying to say? Grow into the game and then build your confidence in the game. Don't just go so attacking that there's just holes at the back and Man United pick you apart in the first 10 minutes. And I think that's where they need to improve. In terms of their style of play, keep it the same. In terms of that stubbornness in the first 10 to 15 minutes of game, that's where they need to improve.
I hear that, man. But you know what? You know, Spurs got the win. You know, they're your arch rivals there, Budge. What's your thoughts on Spurs? You know, I've talked a lot about Spurs and Jose Mourinho. So let you guys talk. What's your thoughts on Spurs, and where do you think that this Jose ball is going to take them?
Do you know what? I think Spurs would do well to just play the secret guest at the party, right? They should like play down all talks of like title and stuff like that, right? And just be unassuming, right? Just turn up at the party, but just be the person right at the back, just getting your results, getting over the line, so on and so forth. And I think that would do them so much better, because I think they're better being the underdogs rather than like having their chances and their hopes played up, right?
Yeah.
The thing about Mourinho, I think he's almost hit a gold mine in terms of the kind of football he wants to play and the players that he has at his disposal, right? He's happy to give up possession and let the other teams play and hit you on a counter and get his goals that way, right? That's his brand of football. He's always played that. And I think in players like Son, who are absolutely devastating on the counter, right? He just needs one chance, one goal. He's that kind of man, right? And I think also going back to the talk we had earlier about recruitment for Tottenham, how cleverly they've recruited in the defensive areas. You know, they got another right back at Højbjerg in the holding midfield, who is the archetypal Mourinho player. A bit about him, a bit of needle. He's a nasty guy. He's just nasty one. Destroy every. Do you know what I mean? So,
he's a horrible player. Oh my God.
Seriously,
I love him. I love him.
He's got, so Mourinho at his disposal, he's got everything really that he needs. I just think, like I said, they just need to be unassuming, temper the expectations a little bit, and provided they can keep Harry Kane fit for the whole season, and obviously key players like Son, I think that's vitally important. I also think, though, to a certain extent, they need more goals being contributed from other areas. Because if Son's not scoring, Kane's not setting up Son, then the goals run dry. And I think there can be an over-reliance on that partnership clicking and working. If they're not on Son, then the chances kind of dry up for Spurs. So I think Bergwijn really needs to step to the fore a little bit more. He's finished his questionable at times. I think he snatches at a bit too much. I think he needs to maybe work on that on a training pitch, and in other areas as well. I think an absolute revelation this season as well has been Tanguy Ndombele. I know when he arrived with a very, very big price tag and reputation, because he was badding it up in Lyon with Husemawa and Nemboy. But for whatever reason last season, down to fitness and Mourinho not taking kindly to him, he didn't have a great season. But he looks ready to go this season, man. And he's got that X factor. Like, when I watch that guy play, I'm like, sometimes I'm shocked at what I see. I'm like, where did that even come from? Do you know what I mean? And I think, again, him staying fit is a vital part of that Spurs machine this season. But like I said, I think ultimately it's down to there being more goals contributed from other areas and everyone staying fit. And I think they are definitely in with a chance to do something this season. whether they're genuine title contenders, of course, remains to be seen. I think ultimately it's gonna be a Liverpool versus City affair come the business end of the season. But I think that they can definitely be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Peter File. Thank you for subscribing, man. Thank you for watching. Glad you're enjoying the show. What makes me nervous about Spurs, yeah, is when you watch them play, they're very hard to beat now. Do you know what I mean? Defensively, they're very good. When you're looking in the box, you got teams trying to cross the ball. Friggin' Dyer's turned into Van Dijk this season, just heading the ball out every minute. Then you've got Højbjerg and Sissoko in the box as well. You can't get no balls flashed across the box. It's this, I'm thinking, geez, man, these that are hard to beat, you know. And they've got Jose as well, that you know is just going to have them, man, behind the scenes. He's like, you can see he's installed that winner's mentality into them. So they do worry me a little bit, you know. Doc, do you think that they could mount a title challenge, or is it just
no, it's top 4 for them. They'll be the 4th team. So I think
I
think Man United are better than them. Liverpool and Man City are clearly better than them. I think they will be in a fight for top 4, but I think they will be the 4th team joining the top 4. And I think it goes back to Budge's point in terms of the over-reliance on Son and Kane. And I think even in the last few weeks, I think both of them, their form has dropped off a bit. Yeah. They had a good game against the Leeds. But I think when you have that over-reliance on 2 players, you need that third support act. And I don't think Tottenham have that. Because when you go back to the Brendan Rodgers, title or second place season, where he lost the title in the last few games, you think about the SAS partnership, which was very similar to what Kane and Son are doing now. But they had those supporting acts in Coutinho and Sterling who were chipping in with 8 to 10 goals. And I think that's what Gareth Bale was meant to be. And Gareth Bale hasn't been that so far. Is he going to come good in the last few months of the season? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much he has left in him.
Yeah, man. Go on,
No, I'm just thinking that you need more attacking impotence from the rest of the team. And I think Kane or Son are not going to go through the whole season without missing games. And I think they'll get injuries, in the running, to be fair.
And you make a great point there because, I've said a few things at the start of the season with regards to a few players.
Gareth Bale, Hammers.
Yeah, you know it. You know it. Havertz, Werner, all these, man.
Remember, I swear it was on Kojo's thing when I was like, listen, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I watch Havertz, and I'm not going to lie, I don't see it. Like,
this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't like. What's the qualities? Like, let's be real.
It's because like people are quick to buy into the media hype, innit? This guy's biting up the German league. Raw Havertz is the next potential Ballon d'Or winner, bro.
Wait, whoa.
This is what he's been dubbed to be. Some people at Chelsea think 80 mil is a snip for Havertz, that he's going to be worth 150 mil. That's fair enough. But like when I watch him at Germany or Bayern Leverkusen, I'm like, okay, take away the goals and assists. What does he do?
This is what I'm saying. Like, what are the attributes?
But the goals and assists are part of his game. That's why I'm so disappointed with Lampard, because I'm like, you're not utilizing him in the best way possible. The way he used him doesn't make sense to me personally. That's what it is.
No,
but that. You also got to remember about the Premier League. Like it's a different
yeah.
And you also like certain players. I don't know, man. Like you can do something in the Bundesliga or League and all of that. Do you know what I mean? But then when it really matters, these players, man, you need. I think they get exposed. Is what I'm looking at there. Is the word I'm looking for. And Bell was another one, man. Like Bell is back in the day, innit? Like what's he done recently? I'm saying.
You know what? I'm gonna leave Bell alone, innit? Because I want to go back to Havertz, innit? Because I want to make a good point. No. I just want to make a point because Kojo said obviously that's what he's there for, to add, numbers, goals and assists. But this is the problem that I had with Dele Alli.
Oh, let's get on to Dele Alli.
Very similar players in terms of they're not strikers, they're not number 10s, they're not number 8s, they're not centre midfielders.
It's supposed to be the second comings of Thomas Muller.
Yeah, you can't put them on the wing, but they can play on the wing, but they can't really beat a man, or they don't have the blistering pace. So where do you put them on the team? And Dele Alli is another player that had a mad purple patch, goals and assists, but the minute those goals and assists dry up, there's nothing to him. So, and that's where I think Bruno Fernandes is different, because he gets ridiculous numbers, but the thing is about Bruno, he's always in the game. Whether he's playing bad, he's always there, standing up and being counted. And I think that's what separates a Bruno Fernandes to players like the Havertz's and Dele Alli's.
Yeah, Kojo, what's your thoughts on what?
No, I hear that. And the thing is, I don't completely disagree. The issue with Havertz for me is this simple, because Dele Alli, to be honest, I gave up on him a long time ago, so I'll forget that bomb. The issue with Havertz for me is this. I will get into the player also, because I feel like he's not doing enough to help himself adapt to the Premier League, the way he plays and the way he's not really gelling with anyone in the team. I don't see where he's made a connection really and truly with anyone. He's only shining light so far this season is scoring a hat-trick in the Carabao Cup. So congratulations for that. But for me, it's this simple. I think when you sign a player, you need to know what they bring to the team. So what Dot was talking about with Bruno Fernandes is always in the game. That's what Havertz was having that Leverkusen. But if you're playing a different style, you're playing a different tactic, you're playing a different formation, you need to also help your player accommodate to that sort of play. So whether it's Havertz is here, he's here, supposed to be a long-term signing. So, okay, maybe this season he develops and then we adapt him and eventually you see his talents come through. It could be that. I just don't want to write him off so quickly. And I don't think Dot is completely writing him off. I'm just saying, I feel like
Dot's writing him off, man.
No, because Dot said earlier, if another manager comes in and then he accommodates him and he finds his way, he could bang. So, he's not saying, trash the guy, send him back to Leverkusen and get your money back. He's not saying that, but he's saying at the same time he's not convinced by what he's seen, and I can hear that. But I just feel like we just need to give it a bit more time. And I do get onto Lampard because at Chelsea, Havertz is not the only player that's suffering. And that's why I can look at that's why I'm looking more at Lampard and saying, why are you struggling with this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy? So I believe in his talents, but of course, listen, maybe Premier League's not for anyone. I mean, Forlan banged before he joined Man United. Man United had his little moments at Liverpool or whatever, but apart from that, didn't really bang. And then he went to Villarreal and was top goal scorer in Europe. So it could just be one of those things, isn't it? So let's just see what happens with him. But I've got time for him.
This comment here, Dele Lingard, yeah.
All right, first of all, do not disrespect Jesse Lingard. That's what I'm saying.
I said on this podcast last season that Dele Alli will end up like Jesse Lingard, and people laughed at me. And I'm telling you, man, as what Doc was saying, when you take away the goals and assists, what does he do? And I think where does Dele Alli go from here now? Because I don't think he's going to make it under Jose. And he's not going to go to another top 6 team. Where does Dele Alli go from here? Am I being OTP?
Obviously, PSG, Pochettino, I'm sure he's going to be very interested in him. Potentially, even in January, to probably bring him on loan.
That's a good point.
So obviously, I think that will be a good move for him to.
Oh, you're lucky that.
That's how football works, man. Things just align, and you think, okay, where's Dele Alli gonna go? And then finally, Poch is back in the job, and Poch the person to get the best out of Dele Alli. So I won't be surprised if he makes a move to PSG in January, because he's got Euros in his mind. He wants to make that squad.
Yeah. Do you know what, Dot? Just to that point, I think that makes perfect sense. But I wonder if potentially the fact that Julian Draxler is still at PSG, does that somehow potentially impact that potential move? Because whilst they're not completely similar, I feel like there are some similarities in the way that they play and the role that they could play in a team. So could potentially Poch bring Julian Draxler out from the cold and utilize his potential and his abilities because of the fact that he has those similarities with Dele Alli? Do you know what I mean?
No, potentially, but I just think Poch loves Dele Alli. I think he's going to go back in for him, and I can see it. I'm not the biggest fan of Dele Alli. I don't think he's a great player, but I think he will bang at PSG. I'm not gonna lie, because he's just gonna be like doing those third man runs off of Neymar and Mbappe. That's gonna be nasty.
Yeah, I hear that, man. So Tottenham, we reckon top 4 in a trophy.
Well, I mean, if we get to the final, they're not winning Carabao Cup, so they can look at Europa League instead. Because I don't want that.
You know what? I'll be real, man. I think they're winning the Carabao Cup, and I'm gonna go and put a bet on it myself as well.
Fair enough.
I think they're winning that, man. You know, Jose loves that cup early doors as well.
Yeah,
It's just written in the stars for them to beat us in the final as well and just make my life a misery. I can just see it. I mean, let's move on to. I wanted to discuss Palace now, actually, because obviously Dot, Budge, you guys were lucky enough to interview Eze on your platform. You know what I mean? Big up. And guys, if you haven't gone to see this, go and watch that interview on their platform. The link will be in the description. So you guys know about this guy already. You know, for some people, it's all new. But what do we expect to see from him from this season and going forward? Because that was a really brilliant goal that he scored for Palace yesterday. Either one of you.
Butch.
Do you know what?
People say I'm biased, so I'm just gonna let Butch go.
Simply put, in my opinion, I think we're gonna see this season why teams at the top end of the Premier League should have gone in for Eze. I think it's an absolute steal, and how no other Premier League team went in, made a bid, inquired about him is absolutely mind-boggling to me. It's an absolute snip for what he's gone to Palace for. And I think to some extent it might be, as you mentioned there, Sems, in terms of like him being a bit under the radar and not many people knowing about him. And I think, you know, unless you're an avid watcher of the Championship, you wouldn't have known much about him, right? But this guy, when he came on our pod, I actually asked him, because he can play in a number of different positions. So I actually asked him, where do you feel is your strongest position?
Yeah.
He was like, he doesn't really mind. In his own description of himself, he was like, I'm just an entertainer. So anywhere on like in the front 4 positions, he can play on the left, he can play just behind the striker, he can play up front, he can play on the right. He is just an entertainer. I would like to see him when I've seen him for Palace so far this season, and he's driving through the middle, committing players to him. He's a kind of guy that can beat a few players and pick out a pass. I think that his inclusion in the team does well to help other players on the pitch as well. I think, you know, whilst we can say Zaha has taken a step up this season in terms of you know, his contribution, and I think it is testament to him being closer to the goal and him, you know, fashioning more chances and whatnot. But I think, you know, other little tweaks that have been made across the pitch as well have also contributed to that. And I think Eze playing as well is a major contributor to that, because now the creative burden or the burden to create a chance to score a goal isn't just solely resting on Zaha's shoulders. Now he's got another guy that can draw players away from him and create more space for him. And I think we're seeing, you know, the results of that early so far this season. But I think there's a lot more to come. I think he's still finding his feet. We're seeing shit from him, and I just think he's going to find some consistency now as long as Hodgson keeps picking him in a team, and I think he's gonna move on leaps and bounds this season. Honestly, I think, you know, he's definitely one to watch. And like I said, you know, every Premier League team, I think, are gonna come the end of the season are gonna be like, wow, this is one that we let away. You know, he fits the profile so well. He's strong, he's creative, he can take players on, he can shoot, and he's young, man. And I think he's really gonna come on this season, most definitely.
Yeah, man, I hear exactly what you're saying. There's a comment here. He won't be at Palace for longer if he continues like this.
Yeah.
So it's a question that I had for you, because when, like, for me, Palace are that steady team, innit? top
Yeah.
top half of the table, just a little bit below. You don't really worry about them getting relegated. A player like him, you know, how long do we expect him? Maybe it's a bit too early to say, but how long do we expect him to be at a team like Palace before he then looks to step up and move on?
I would say 2 years. I think obviously this is his first season in the Premier League, settle into the league. He's still adapting. Form has been inconsistent, but we've seen, you know, great moments of quality. And I think the more tough games he's in now, the better it's going to stand him in the future. For example, I was speaking to a few people close to his camp after that 7-0 defeat against Liverpool. They're like, look, this is the top level. You have to be ruthless. People like Mane, Salah, one chance, bang, goal. They're running at your defense. They're putting you to the sword. And I think to play at that top level, you need to be aggressive when you get the ball every single time. And I think yesterday's goal was indicative to that. Like, beat a man, drop the shoulder, where am I putting this, bang into the bottom corner. And I actually shared a text with him yesterday, and I was like, bro, like, you just stand out like it was so calm. He was like, bro, I was gassed. I was so gassed. Like, I didn't know what to do. And he's just a baller. Like, as you said, when he came onto our platform, he was like, look, I want to create moments where people just say, raw. Is that what this boy is about? And yesterday was a raw moment. So we move.
He was just gliding, man. He was gliding. When you watch it and he just glide past this man, drop that shot, glide past that man, and the finish was stupid.
He's such a unique player. Yeah, he's a unique player. Like, even the way he dribbles, he just moves his body and he beats you. Like, literally, he doesn't use his feet that much. It's more bang, drop the shoulder to the left, to the right, and then he's gone. And I think the closest player that I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter, and he was saying that Eze reminds him of Grealish. And I was like, I hear it to a point, but I want to go a bit more back. And I see that the way he can just drive through the middle. I'm not saying he's Kaka's standard. I'm saying the style of play is more like, listen, I'm just going to drop the shoulder and drive through the middle. And he just plays with his head up. And I think that's such a good trait to see.
Yeah. And you know what? Another thing about him, is that typically players like that are very diminutive. They're small. They're slight. They've got a low center of gravity, so they can change direction very quickly and whatnot. But if you look at him in his build, he's a strong guy. Like,
well, it's like Kaka, don't you think? Like Kaka,
you're not gonna body him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he can hold his own. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I think players like him and Grealish are a bit different, because even Grealish, he's another creative guy, but he's a big guy. He's a solid guy. Do you understand? So that's why there's kind of difference, you know.
It's like Hazard as well. Like, he's a big guy. Like, the legs, they're mad. Are you mad?
You know what? We're having a little bit of a laugh here, and I don't want to laugh at Sheffield United, but what's that now? The worst team in Premier League history in terms of winless in their first 17 games. Like, what? You know, we've talked about Aston Villa just about scraping relegation and then just turning it on this season. And Sheffield United obviously had a comfortable year last year, and then now, what has happened, Kojo? What has gone wrong?
I genuinely don't know, you know. But all I'm going to say is this. I don't. This is gonna sound so brutal, but it's just what it is. I don't have time for teams that have not won a game by January. I just don't have time for them. They didn't even win their Carabao Cup game. That's how bad it is. They haven't experienced a W this season. Their last W was in pre-season. Quite frankly, or quite simply, it's just time for them to get out of the Premier League. I know that sounds brutal. There's a chance that they could get an upturn in form. I don't know what the problem is. I genuinely can't figure it out, because they still play the same style. They've got the same sort of personnel. They added Brewster, who I said was going to score 5 goals this season, not for his fault problem, but because I didn't think that they'll find the chances to create for him. And he's struggling in the system. And I mean, Wilder said it yesterday. He's not enjoying it, but he's trying to find a solution, because he doesn't know what the solution is either. What I'm going to say is this. For their sake, I really hope they don't break the Premier League record of least points set by Derby in 2008, because that is not a record that you want. I think they won one game early and then they didn't win a game until like March when they were already relegated. Sheffield United need to win games and win fast because the gap is opening up each and every week. 2 points in January is an absolute disgrace. It's as simple as that, and there's no way they can go around it. So, I mean, the all-time record outside the Premier League is 10 points. I think that's a Stoke record. I genuinely, as mad as it sounds, I don't see them getting past 8 points this year. I just don't.
Come on, coach.
I know, no, I'm being serious because the thing is, you think I'm being super harsh, but I look at them, I'm like, I don't know where your wins are coming from. I genuinely don't know where the wins are coming from. I hope they get over 8 points. I don't want them to break that Derby record, but I don't know where the wins are coming from. And scarily enough, Chris Wilder said he doesn't know where the issue is either. So if I can't see it and he can't see it, who else can? You know? So I don't know.
Let's be honest. Like, I can't remember where I said it. Sheffield, they're not good. They don't have good players. Like, sometimes you just need to call a spade a spade. Their team is not good enough. It's not Premier League quality. They got found out at the back end of last season, and it's continued this season. That's all that's happened. And at the end of the day, people say second season syndrome is actually a thing. Like, teams that know what they're about, teams know about the inverted centre backs and the inverted fullback, should I say, and the centre backs going out wide. Teams have found it out. And I think the biggest thing for Sheffield United is concentration. Last season, they were built off a solid foundation. So even if they don't win games, they don't lose them. Now, they're giving away cheap set piece goals. Defensively, crosses are beating them and they're conceding goals. And make no mistake, Ramsdale is the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League. And for them to spend 20 million on Ramsdale, you deserve to be relegated. It's just simple as that. You can't buy Ramsdale for 20 million when Emi Martinez is going for 20 million. It's ridiculous. Like, come on, man.
Oh my gosh, that's jokes. You know
what?
God.
I was gonna say something, I agree, to be honest, with the points that Kojo and Dot raised just then on Sheffield. I think it's difficult for them to find a solution internally because I just, like Dot said, I just don't think they're good enough. I don't think they've got players that are good enough for them to find internal solutions. And of course, they've been found out in terms of their style of play. I think what is ultimately what their season will boil down to is recruitment and how well they recruit. And what I say that, and in the back of my mind, I don't know how much I trust them to recruit well off the basis of how they've recruited just now. So, like Dot already mentioned, the signing of Ramsdale, also signing Brewster, I'm not entirely sure was the best decision for them. In terms of where they're at, in terms of the kind of profile of striker I think they need, I don't know if that was the best decision.
Yeah, but Budge, can I interrupt? What kind of striker suits Sheffield United?
Do you know what?
I'm even saying that in a rude way because when I look at them, what kind of profile are you talking about? Is it a target man? Is it a McBurney? Is it a McGoldrick? Because they already have that.
Yeah, I hear you.
Maybe more experience, maybe.
Perhaps that. So, funnily enough, we recently interviewed Umar Nias on our platform a little while ago, who was, of course, most recently at Everton. And just speaking to him, understanding his mentality, his mindset, and what he expects or what he wants and what he's willing to give to the next club that he goes to, I think someone like him is a no-brainer, right? Because you've got a guy who has something to prove. He's got a point to prove. He's experienced. He's played at the top level. He's a guy that's going to run and chase.
He's a nightmare.
Yeah? He's big and strong, so you can play it up to him. He can hold it up. Do you understand? For someone like that, for example, would be someone that I think they should take a punt on because what have you got to lose, essentially? From a financial and commercial perspective, it's not going to be a huge amount because it's a free agent. At the same time, you've got someone who has the right mentality for where your club is at this point in time. He's got something to prove. He's going to be chomping at the bit to try and prove himself in the Premier League to score goals and so on and so forth. So I think someone like him might be a shining light in Sheffield United. And I
You
think
know what?
they really need to recruit well.
I'm gonna have to clip this part and at Sheffield United, man, give them some help in the transfer.
Bro, I can't lie to you.
We've sorted your problem, man.
I can't lie to you. After watching that interview, I really like Umania, so I do not want him having a relegation on his record. So I'd rather he didn't go there. But they're all right. They're all right. I can't lie.
He's a good guy.
Oh gosh. Anyway, we'll move on from them, and we will get now to the moment we've all been waiting for. It's Gooner time, bud. Are your boys back now? That's 3 wins in a row. You beat Chelsea. You've just beat West Brom 4-0. Is Arsenal back now?
Do you know what? I don't want to talk too soon and jinx things, yeah. But over the past few weeks, so many people have been calling for Arteta to be sacked, and I always maintained, right, that I don't think that was the best decision to make, especially because I felt that it was knee-jerk and it was very reactionary. And unless we had a solid plan in terms of succession to follow up after sacking him, it made no sense for us to get rid of him. Yeah. And it's just a matter of playing your way out of bad form. And sometimes that's literally all you need. You just need the rub of the green here, a bit of luck there, a VAR decision to go your way, you know, someone to score a jammy goal if it goes in off your elbow or your knee or whatever, just to get the 3 points and to build confidence. Sometimes you just need that. And I think what has been key in recent weeks, especially when I listen to Arteta and the way that he answers questions in his pre-match and post-match conferences, he's relaxed his non-negotiables to a certain extent. Okay. I think at first he was a bit too stubborn with them, and I think it was the I guess the knock-on effect of being at City and playing with Pep and coaching with him and so on and so forth. He basically brought those philosophies and tried to implement the same style of play with considerably worse players, right? And I think he just needed to understand that you're going to have to make certain concessions because we don't have the quality of players that City do, right? And there's just such a huge amount of work that needs to be done, right? It's not gonna be done overnight. There's gonna be work that needs to be made, and you're gonna have to give up and concede in a few areas, right? And I think he's understood that and he's seen that. I just wish that he realized that sooner, because I think some of the decisions that he's made, I don't think he's a particularly bad coach. I just think in terms of some of the decisions that he's made from a personnel standpoint just haven't been the right ones. I think he has blindly shown faith in Willian, who anyone, Ray Charles could have told you that he wasn't the property coming to Arsenal, right? The fact that he has persisted with playing certain players or to that point as well, omitting certain players, right? Everyone knew we were lacking goals, we were lacking creativity. We need a number 10. You omit Ozil. Fair play. If that's the decision that you're going to make, where are you going to compensate for that? How are we still going to create? Yeah. And so it's like, okay, he's played Emil Smith-Rowe, who's played a blind of 3 games in a row.
Come on. It's a baller.
It's a no-brainer. You should have done this so much sooner. You like we've literally basically been digging our own grave for the past couple of weeks unnecessarily, right? And really, ultimately, that's the only thing that's changed. He's stopped putting his faith in certain players, and I think to be honest, to a certain extent, he stumbled upon it because Willian, David Luiz, and a few other players, they were all out. So he happened to stumble upon this, and he's played it, and it's worked for him. And fair play, you know, fair play. He's realised that, and now it looks like he is going to give the young players more game time. And I think, you know, he should have just done it sooner, honestly, and we wouldn't be in the position that we're in currently. But fortunes are turning around. I think, like we already mentioned, Emil Smith-Rowe has been a revelation. Saka playing on the right has just been unplayable. Like, I think he that guy, he is just, he just doesn't make sense to me. When I just look at him, I just think he doesn't look like a footballer to me, to be honest. He's so intelligent. He can play in multiple positions, and every good thing that has come from Arsenal in recent weeks has come from him. So I think we're onto a winning formula. We've built up some confidence now. I think looking at the fixture list, the next couple of games, we should get maximum points from them. And I think two wins away from being right back up in the top 6 conversation. So
but you're 3 points behind Chelsea as well.
There you go. A certain man have been spending 200 million. You see what I mean? So there you go.
It's a crazy old season. Kojo, there was some gentleman on your podcast that made some of the similar points as to what Budge made regarding Arteta just bringing the non-negotiables over to Arsenal and needing to maybe relax them a bit. Do you think now then that he's, because obviously confidence is a big thing in football. Do we think now that Arsenal can then mount a top 6 challenge from this position, or not necessarily? They will mount a challenge. Do you think they can finish top 6?
It's still possible. I mean, we've seen in the league that teams that are. I mean, we've been talking about Man United being in bad form, but suddenly they're second level points in Liverpool. So it's the Premier League right now. There's so little 1 or 2 games you go from here to here in an instant. So of course they're still in that conversation. Thing is, I think so. When Doc came into my podcast, I think me and Cahill were saying that Arteta's time is up. Where he was pretty much saying, look, give some patience. It's too early to sack him. Similar to what Budge was saying, and I think what Cahill being an Arsenal fan, his issue was the selection, just like they alluded to. Willian always playing. Maybe Pepe finding some form in the Europa and maybe building his confidence a bit more. Why is he not starting the next game, for example? Yeah. Things like that. But these two are right. It comes about when you finally get a win, and then when you get one win, the next one comes. They beat Chelsea. They beat Chelsea deservedly so, and they went into this game and absolutely hammered West Brom. And it's all about building. It's all about building confidence into the next game. So it's about what you do next and what you do after that and what you do after that. So it's too early to write them off for a top 6 position. They're even 6 points off the top 4. So, in relation, they're not even in that bad a position. I mean, we're laughing at Tottenham for going from top to 8th within a week, but then they've won their game and they're suddenly 4 points off top. And if Liverpool win their game, it's a game in hand, win yours back to 4 points. It's very small things in the Premier League. So
right now.
So it's got to take your time with Arsenal. But Arteta's still doing a decent job, in my opinion. I wouldn't say good job just yet because of what he's done previously in the last couple of games where they've been on a bad run. But they're not far off the top 4. They're 3 points off Frank Lampard's Chelsea, who we should be asking more questions about. So in reality, it's not actually that bad a situation for Arsenal. They're doing all right. Could finish top 6.
One of the things I used to hear a lot is that Arsenal don't have good enough players, so it wasn't Arteta's fault, the position that they were in. What do you think of the Arsenal players? Do you think that the players that they've brought in now who are getting game time are good players, as in your Smith Rose? Saka was always playing anyway. Or do you think that it's just down to the manager now getting the best out of these players, Doc?
No, I think obviously, as Budge said, he stumbled across this. I think if William and all those players didn't get injured, I don't think Emil will be playing. And I speak to people close to Arsenal, and they're like, "Listen, this Emil guy, he's a baller. Like last season, he was at Huddersfield. The guy can play. Like, he's a very, very good player." And I think that's what happens when you play players that are active, and that's the big problem I have with Pepe. When I watch Pepe, it's too passive.
Yes.
It's like one pace, one-dimensional,
slowing the game down.
Slowing the game down. In the Premier League, you need to be very dynamic, and I think that's where Saka and Emil get along on the pitch, because they're just like, look, bang, 1-2. This is what we used to do in the 21s. Bang, 1-2, and you're just in behind, and you're cutting things back. And that's why Lacazette looks like a better player, because he's got players around him that are moving. But I think the big worry is Aubameyang. Because Arsenal have had an upturn in form, and to be fair, I'm not seeing where Aubameyang fits in at the moment. But At the end of the day, he's a world-class striker. He's a world-class goal scorer. So I still back him to come good again. And I think Arsenal can, pick up decent form now because, yeah, they don't have a great squad, but their players are better than 11th place. And I think once you get Emil more confident, you get Saka having a run of 10 games on right wing, you get Lacazette, who's looking like a good player now. You got Aubameyang that, isn't hitting form, but that's good. Like, Aubameyang's not scoring, but the team's still winning. So when he does score, the team's going to be better. So I think, it's a good, 3 wins on a bounce, but I wouldn't be, jumping up trees yet for Arsenal. I think they're miles off the top 4.
Yeah, I hear that. But a little bit like what I was saying about Man United, as you mentioned there, second half of the season, I doubt Aubameyang is going to have the same sort of season as he did in the first half. That can only be good for Arsenal. But I do think it's not necessary. It's about having better players around you as well, and then a system that is working and confidence and everything. So, yeah, we may now start to see a situation now where Arsenal can go and get some games under their belt, and you never know what happens from there. But regardless, it's still, I think, will end up being a poor season for Arsenal overall. Come the end.
We pray.
Kieran Tierney is a baller, though. I just want to say that.
Oh yeah.
Also, it's a very Arsenal thing to do, to go on a run of games where you turn out performances, and then everyone's like, "Oh, we don't need to." That will be a huge issue if so. I think if there were considerations and thoughts about recruitment this window, that they should absolutely continue. I think if we can get 1 or 2 players in on loan, there's been some rumors about players like Julian Brandt, who I've been a long-term admirer of. I think you absolutely still need to, because then what happens is Emil Smith-Rowe plays more frequently, but then the entire burden of creation falls on his young shoulders, right? And what you want is him to be playing regularly, but you don't want him to burn out. So you still need another 1 or 2 players to come in, play with him, or play instead of him on some occasions and whatnot. And I think if Arsenal, stop all of their planning for recruitment in January off the back of the recent result, I mean, that is the worst thing they could possibly do.
All right. We'll just quickly touch on a few other games before we wrap up. Leicester, obviously, I think they're up to 3rd now. They beat Newcastle 2-1. They're quietly going about their business. You know what I mean? They're doing all right. You guys interviewed Brendan Rodgers as well. He's a top manager. Someone said to me today, don't be surprised if he doesn't take over at Chelsea, potentially. What do you think is his ceiling at Leicester, Dotto Budge? As I said, you lot have spoken to him. Do you think that he's going to be at Leicester for much longer? Because again, I think that there's only so far that he can take them, in my opinion.
It's a tough question. He's a top manager, in my opinion. I know people have reservations over Brendan, but for me, he's a top manager. I'm sure Chelsea will be on that short list, because the Athletic are reporting that, like, Lampard, he jobs on the brink. Chelsea have open conversations with a few candidates as to, replace Lampard. So I'm sure he's one of them. Definitely. Yeah. He will be on anyone's list at the moment. In terms of Leicester, I think they're top 4 contenders this season. But I think there's just an over-reliance on Jamie Vardy to win them games over and over again. But what I would say is Yuri Tillemans, I think he's improved as a player so much. Because he's one of those players before that I felt, he's a good player, but he's very leggy at times, very lethargic on the ball at times. But this season, you can argue that he's been Leicester's best performer. I think he's been very, very good. And I think that's just a testament to Brendan Rodgers. He's seen a rough diamond. You got good attributes, but now I need to mold your game into a complete midfielder. And we're seeing that from Tillemans this season. James Maddison, he's a player that's been, riddled with injuries, but he's going to come back to form and get better as the season goes along. And Jamie Vardy's still a spring chicken. If they can get maybe a top player in January, I think they'll really push the top 4.
Yeah, Kojo, do you think it was the squad depth that let Leicester down towards the back end of last season, or did they choke a little bit? What's your thoughts on that?
I think they just ran out of a little bit of steam. Yeah, the depth does play a part, but I think they just ran out of a little bit of steam. And I think what Brendan Rodgers did smart this year was he bought smart. Someone like Timothy Castagne is a great signing.
Great signing.
Very underrated player. But that's what Rodgers is all about. You know what? Football fans like to, once a manager or a player fails or so-called fails at something, they pin that on that person forever. So when they talk about Rodgers, it's always Liverpool and he didn't win the title and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, he's still a top manager. Those things can happen. And probably just ran out of steam a little bit. They were still good last year. And when they finished, it's not a disgrace. I know they were in the top 4, they looked comfortable, but it wasn't a bad end for me because they still ended up in Europe and they've been doing their job in Europe as well. No one's been talking about that this year.
Yeah.
But they've been battling up teams in the Europa League. They've been doing their thing, So, I think they've run out of steam last year. I think what they've done this year is they're using their players better. They're using their players wisely. They're playing games on Thursday, but they're not looking tired on a Sunday, which is key. And you got players like your Vardis who can still ball out. Tielemans' level of improvement, like Dot has alluded to, has gone from here to here.
Harvey Barnes,
great signing. Barnes, he's
starting
to get better.
Season.
Yeah, his end product's improving now, and that's a big thing as well because now he's adding more goals and creating more chances. So, yeah. Paul
loves him. Yeah.
Oh, he loves him. Okay, I was going to say
loves Barnes. Yeah.
I can see the smile on his face. So, I like Leicester. I like them as a team. I think they've got good players. The only player I worry about in that club is Iheanacho. I think he's very low in confidence. He's the only one I worry about. I think he might need a move. I think he needs to go somewhere and really cement himself as the main striker. Because right now, as long as Vardy's there, you will never be number 1. Because Vardy's too damn good, to be honest. So he's the only one I worry about. But other than that, they're a good team, man. So they'll be all right. And I think last season they were good as well overall.
Cool. The only thing I want to add, Sam Jam, is on the topic of Brendan Rodgers and how good he is as a manager.
Yeah.
It may be controversial, but this is my opinion. If you told me we're going to sack Arteta tomorrow and there's one manager that can replace him, like you get to pick, for me, I'm picking Brendan Rodgers. That's how highly I rate him.
See. We was discussing this on this platform as well before you guys got Arteta. That would have probably been a good signing for you guys. But then we were saying a bit of banter involved in it, but we were saying that maybe Arsenal weren't big enough for him at that time. Like in recent times. So, but no, I think that would have been a good signing for Arsenal and potentially would have been a good move for him as well. But yeah, you never know what's around the corner. I don't expect him to be at Leicester for too long. As I said, I think their ceiling is a certain position, and I think, as you have said, I think he's a good manager as well. So I expect him to move on to a bigger and better team. No real point. There's nothing really much to say on Newcastle. But Wolves are a bit weird, man. Like a lot of people hype up and rate Wolves, but me personally, they've got good players in that, but they do flatter to impress me a lot of the time, man. They're 2 wins in the last 8. I know that they've not got Raul at the moment, but they've got good enough players to be doing better than that, in my opinion. Like, Kojo, what's your thoughts on Wolves?
I think people are more in love with their players rather than how they play as a team.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
You see Pundit. I like Pundit, but he dropped the shoulder, beat a player, and then I saw on Twitter the second coming of Eden Hazard. I'm like, take your time. Neto is another good player, but they got young guys. Jimenez is good to watch. Adama Traore is usually fun to watch when he's beating a man because he can't stop him until the end product part of it comes in, and you don't know which one's coming. Ruben Neves because long range shots, because long range passing, but really and truly, is he that great a footballer? I mean, a player, sorry, in the overall picture. He's a good player. I'm not going to doubt that. But overall, you don't fall in love with the way they play because you know that you actually don't know what results coming from them. You look at them as a good team, but 2 wins and 8. And the way that we talk about their talent, you're talking about them winning 6 out of 8. But that's okay because Wolves are not supposed to be a title challenging team, but people talk about them and their talent as if they are that or they get to that level. Their form doesn't really concern me just because I know they'll be all right. I think they're going to be a team that's just going to be sort of 7th to 11th in that bracket for a couple of years. And I think that's okay for them. What they need to do is at some point, there'll be a year where they try to invest heavy to maybe push for a European spot, but be certain in that spot. And I don't know when that's going to be. As for now, when it comes to set pieces, as you know, I moan about defending. I've done 148 episodes of 3inMidfield, and I always complain about defending. They can't defend set pieces for. I was about to. Are we swear on this platform?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Yeah, they can't defend set pieces. Shit, they're just complete garbage. If I'm being honest, defense set pieces, and it happens to a lot of teams. But the way I watch them, I'm like, again, every week again. That's what it is to me. So. They have got good players, but really and truly as a team, I don't rate them too highly. And that's why they are where they are. So, but Nuno is a nice manager. Apparently, Cahill wants him. So, you know, I mean, Budge, I don't know how you feel about that, but...
Yeah, I've heard some other Arsenal fans talk about him as well for Arsenal.
Nah.
I like him. I like him, but I just don't... I don't think he's got enough for Arsenal. I think he's at a good level for him. I agree again with a lot that you mentioned there, Kojo, in terms of Wolves and just where I just feel like they're in a really grey space right now. Like I don't really know what they are, what they're trying to do. You know, we've obviously mentioned Raul Jimenez is a huge miss for them at the moment. Adama Traore, he's in and out of the team. I think he had a bit of a purple patch where he was just, you know, really creating quite a few chances towards the tail end of last season. He's not really been able to regain that same kind of form this year. And I think, again, it is ultimately just like loads of individuals. We see great individual performances from Podence, from Neto, from Saiss and these guys, but it's ultimately it's not really culminating in anything. And I don't know. I think is it just a case of going back to the drawing board and going back to basics with them and really just trying to set up so they're more difficult to beat as a platform to then push on. Who knows, man? But I do think that Nuno is a good coach. He should continue to stay there and see what he can do.
All right, man.
Unless you wanted anything to say on Wolves, Dot.
No, I'm just going to say Neto is a baller. That's it.
Yeah.
He's one that Manchester City should be looking at as a potential Aguero replacement.
Yeah. That's a good shout. He's a top player, man. I really like him. Last game, really, Everton lost 1-0 at home to West Ham. And, you know, I've said many of
that. People don't learn. I warned people like Budge were going on Sky Sports and telling me, listen. Everton, man. Like, I was just looking at this guy, you've been tricked. Like, Everton are going to always be Everton, fam. It doesn't matter. Like, they're pretenders.
The pretenders, man.
We don't have the same conversation about Everton every single season, and I always have like a glimmer of hope because of the recruitment in it. So this season, I was like, wow, they got the Corey, they got Alan, they got Hamid. I was thinking, their midfield balance is mad now, and obviously DCL's been banging them in.
Was banging.
I'm thinking, how can you not like your team? You've got some ballers. Like, how are you not going to perform? And the thing about it is, at the start of the season, when they were
Budge was moving smart.
I was moving on the side there, like, bro, maybe this season might be the season. You know, they might They might break Europe, but yeah, I think it's.
Oh man,
Who was it that said it about Tottenham? He was like, it's just the history of Everton.
It's just, fam. It's like, listen, yeah. If you're a good team, you play badly. You do not lose that game. You don't let West Ham win that game. You're at Goodison Park, 0-0. Take the 0-0. It's a shocking result, but you move on. Everton, they're not a serious team. For them to lose that game so calmly, and what killed it is that there was no reaction after going a goal down. Like, there was nothing to them. It was just like, you know what? It's a bad day. We accept it. We move on to the next game. And I think that's where the mentality needs to change. And I think Ancelotti is trying his best to change it, but it's hard to change the culture of a flaky club.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you.
The only thing I can add to that is you will never achieve anything with Yerry Mina, Michael Keane, and Jordan Pickford.
It's true.
That's as simple as it gets for me.
But to be fair to Jordan Pickford, he's been okay recently. Like, to be fair,
I mean, for him,
he ain't made no mistakes.
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
he's crazy. Oh man.
I had somebody up here. His name's Torch, one of my guys, man. Bet me £100, you know, that Everton are gonna finish top 4. And it's there, so he can't run away.
You know what is them? People, James Rodriguez tricked people. Like, that's what happened. People thought, oh my days, have you seen the way he started in the Premier League? Bro, James Rodriguez, this is him. He's gonna give you 2 good games every 10 games. That's it.
Oh, I like you know. I needed you to back me on Twitter when people were getting at me when I was saying James Rodriguez ain't gonna do shit.
Like, the guy is a baller, but he's not consistent, man.
He's not.
You should have bet Cahill, because Cahill was. In fact, I need to wheel up on the podcast. I need to start doing snippets. Man said with his chest that they're going to be winning Premier League. With his whole chest, he came out and said they're winning Premier League. I need to get snippets. People need to be exposed for this. It's very good, actually. But I was one of those that did say that James Rodriguez might do something. So.
No, James Rodriguez is a player. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's a baller, but he's not a top player. Like, he's not consistent enough to be a top player. He's got world-class ability, but that's where it ends.
And that's why I've never said man ain't got the ability. You know what I'm saying? I'm just talking about what man's gonna do in the Premier League. That's what I'm saying. There's some players that are going to be able to do. There's some that aren't, and unfortunately for me, he was never one of them players, man. You know what I mean? But anyway, we'll end on that note, man.
To be fair to him, Seb, Balassi was like, "Listen, he's the best number 10 in the Premier League." So
serious, that what Balassi was
saying? Said he's mad.
Hey, get Balassi back in the Premier League playing, man.
Yeah, he's a baller. He's a baller.
No, I do like Balassi. But you know what? We'll end on that note. Enjoyed that podcast, gentlemen. As I said before, the beginning, thank you very much. I flipping messed up in the first 4 minutes. It was on private, boy. So we weren't even live for like the But you know what? Please, again, when you sign out, gentlemen, just let the people know where they can find you, all of your handles and everything like that. If we can start with yourself, please, Kojo.
Yep, you can just follow me at 3inMidfield Podcast on Twitter. On YouTube, it's 3inMidfield Podcast, and of course, if you prefer to listen to audio, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, 3inMidfield, you'll find us there. And if you're a football fan, always feel free to come on. And also, I'll just plug for yourself as well. FS Uncut on YouTube. We interview some footballers. We do reviews of games every Sunday. So we've had Brett Sunbalonga on, for example. And the team's doing great things, and hopefully do more great things in 2021 as well. So shout out to that.
Big up, man.
Big up for what he says as well.
Big up, man. Big up. Dot, sign out for me, please.
Yeah, Dot at LFC Nino. Mostly talk about Liverpool, but sometimes I drop a few other lines on there. The podcast is at podcast_TBG on Twitter. On Instagram is at pod_TBG. YouTube, Spotify, and Apple is the Beautiful Game Podcast.
Brilliant. Budge, yourself, please.
Man. Before I sign out, man, I just got to say thanks again, Seps, man. It's been a
man.
The time went through so quickly, man.
buddy. Nearly 2 hours, you know.
I know, man. It was great, man. And obviously, big up to everyone in the comments and everyone who tuned in. Like, love for all of your comments and so on and so forth. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at Budge the Gooner. Of course, I'm a Gooner, so I tweet a lot about Arsenal. But I'm a football fan at heart, ultimately, man. So follow up. Let's start dialogues on there. Dot obviously mentioned all of our podcast handles. The Beautiful Game. You can just catch us everywhere. And hit up our content, man. We've had the opportunity to interview loads of dope footballers and managers and people within the game. You obviously mentioned a few there. I've got interviews with Rio Ferdinand, Andy Cole, Jermaine Defoe, and honestly, the list goes on, man. So check us out, hit us up on Spotify, on YouTube, subscribe, like our content, and just keep it locked, man, because we've got some big things coming. Honestly, we're working, man. So stay tuned, keep your eyes peeled, and we've got some very exciting stuff coming in 2021.
Wicked, man, wicked. And you know, as I said, the time is nearly 2 hours. I did want to discuss, obviously, Southampton's playing Liverpool tomorrow, but we didn't get time. But yeah, man, I appreciate you guys. Like, real talk, I appreciate you. And people, please go and follow these guys, young guys doing and putting in the work. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I give respect for, because as I said, this ain't easy. Trying to create content on a consistent basis is not easy, man. So I rate you guys, boys. So as I said, it's been my pleasure to have you on. Everyone's a pundit. Thank you very much. People, like, share, subscribe. This is Everyone's a Pundit, and these were my pundits. Until next week, we are out. Peace.